I've been scraping the NES catalog for GIFable images and writing down my thoughts as I go. Here are those thoughts recorded and synchronized to relevant gameplay footage in order to bring you the definitive guide to the Nintendo Entertainment System. 3D World Runner was an ambitious rail shooter platforming hybrid that came with a pair of 3D glasses you could throw in the trash. You're supposed to bump into a column and pick up a weapon, but the bigger challenge is learning where each of the jumps are while recklessly smashing the fire button. 8 Eyes appears rigid and unforgiving on the surface, but if you think of it as 8-bit Dark Souls, it begins to have appeal. There's some weird controls involving a bird that can be moved by a second player for some couch co-op, and you can choose what order you want to play the stages, so it's like Mega Man Vania. 10-Yard Fight is a stripped-back version of football, which I've came to appreciate after fumbling over contemporary versions of electronic video gridiron. There's 2 side passes, a wide receiver, tackles, and interceptions, which is just enough substance so that anyone can quickly familiarize themselves and get some skin in the game. 720 totally pioneered the skateboarding genre, with an over-engineered arcade cabinet that used a bike chain on the joystick shaft. But the NES D-pad works just fine. You're awarded cash to upgrade your equipment based on your performance for each event. Or you can just ignore all this and free skate until the killer bees come, or you bump into a sex offender. 1942 is a hideous-looking port of the Capcom arcade shooter that has you flying over the Windows blue screen of death for 10 minutes until you finally see land. You can pick up extra fighters to shoot alongside, but the main strategy is to memorize patterns while figuring out whose cardiogram keeps beeping. 1943 fares a bit better in terms of gameplay, and has a marginally less wretched appearance. At least the controls are smoother, and there's special weapons to pick up, as well as power-ups, charge shots, and stat upgrades. It's still tough as balls, especially the battleships, so make sure to cheat by slowing down the emulator. A Boy and His Blob is an exercise in trial and error, as you cycle through jelly beans to feed your glutinous jizz stain. The environmental puzzles feel a bit too proprietary, and the controls are so glidey that even the blob doesn't want to keep up. Just go stand on the corner and listen to the music. A Nightmare on Elm Street is good but suffers some gashes, like how your punch is slow and short, and the randomized house feature isn't readily understood unless you read the manual. Same with pressing select to switch weapons while you're asleep. But whatever you do, don't forget the bones. Playable up to 4 incels. A bad ox isn't a bad ox, as the name would imply, but a half-decent shooter where you make your way through some creature's digestive system. You can shoot a blue scorpion that drops a power capsule to upgrade your arsenal. The graphics are pretty cool, but I would have liked to see more vomit and turds floating around for added realism. Action 52 is a collection of bizarre and questionable games with surreal graphics and an intriguing soundtrack. The flagship title is the barely playable Cheetah Man. Other lowlights include Lollipop, Time Warp Tickers, and Bubblegum Rosie. As broken as they are, they're silly enough to keep skimming through, and it makes a fun drinking game. Adam and Eve appeared on a number of multi-carts, and as a standalone release under Gluck Video in Spain. You need to pop the floating snakes while avoiding bird droppings and spikes. You can grab a pump to fix a deflated balloon, and even run on the ground. 40 levels of modestly challenging action and 2-player co-op make this Bible bumper a decent alternative to balloon fight and joust. The Addams family has you playing as Hitler as you explore castles and graveyards to collect money for Holocaust survivors. All the levels are filled with cheap deaths that require trial and error and no saves. So have fun memorizing this horror show. I consider Action 52 a less frustrating experience by today's standard. Pugsley's scavenger hunt learns from the mistakes of its predecessor by dialing back the deadliness and upping the explorability. They also downgraded the graphics, with a lot of solid backgrounds and monochrome areas, and completely cut the musical budget. And why does Pugsley look like he's getting taken up the ass when he jumps? There were 4 advanced Dungeon & Dragon games for the NES. Dragon Strike is a top-down free-roaming shooter where you're tasked with killing cavemen, warships, and dragons. You control the dragon by rotating left and right, and there's upgrades to be found and different objectives to complete. Just don't expect any RPG elements. Heroes of the Lance has you jumping off a ledge to kill each of your 8 characters in an attempt to save time playing the shitty game. It's supposed to be an action RPG, but the controls in combat are bad, and the screen makes terrible use of the real estate, where you're constantly being reminded to kill yourself. Hillsfar is some lame horseback riding adventure with RPG elements that don't matter. You travel around the map doing busy work and errands for a bunch of lazy commoners, while you navigate ugly menus and struggle to read the text. The controls are not responsive during the writing parts, so it's impossible to guarantee any sort of progress without some sort of tool assistance. Pool of Radiance won me over with its charming inner dialogue, an actual resemblance to a Dungeons & Dragons title, but it still contains the typical dungeon crawling niggles that plague the old school genre, so you'll get lost, die a lot in combat, and probably find a few chuckles along the way before giving it a pass. Adventure Island is an adaptation of the arcade game Wonder Boy. You play as the diabetic Master Higgins, grabbing fruit to recover your constantly depleting energy. Throw your axe at helpless snails and pet rocks along the way, or jump on a skateboard so you can fall down and die. A solid first entry. Adventure Island 2 expands the scope of the series in every way by adding a variety of enemies, bonus stages, and dinosaur helpers. There's also an impressive amount of environments and scenery packed into the game's 8 islands, not to mention an inventory system. Pro tip, store your axes early instead of riding the skateboard. Adventure Island 3 takes everything about the previous game and pluses 1. There's a new dinosaur, a new weapon, the boomerang, new bonus stages, better secrets, and the overall course flow is much nicer. It's like it tells the story without the need for dialogue, how you always seem to encounter the right tool for the job, and stands among the best platformers on the NES. Disney's Adventures in the Magic Kingdom is a compilation of 5 reasonably polished mini-games set inside Disney World, or Disneyland, fuck do I know. One of them is a Simon Says game set inside Space Mountain, 2 of them are racing challenges, and 2 of them are tricky platformers. And then you gotta walk around and answer people's questions they could have easily searched for on their phone. Adventures of Playability is a half light gun shooter, half beat 'em up, and half driving game. The light gun mode is great and can be played on its own. The driving is serviceable, but Playability doesn't beat off too well. At first it's fun going around trying to kick guys in the dick, but it's probably a more effective attack in real life. Adventures of Dino Ricky is a vertical shooter in disguise, and started off okay with some nice power-ups and a steady pace, but once I got to the lily pads, it was game over. Good luck doing this without tool assist or save states, cause you're not. I always get this and another Dino game mixed up. For that, go to hell, Dino Ricky. I don't know which demographic the Adventures of Gilligan's Island was playing to, but it's a weird flex. There's jokes being told that kind of hint at what to do, and it's probably not enough to go by today's standards, but it's fun watching the skipper spaz out on the ground trying to breakdance. And why isn't Gilligan wearing red? The Adventures of Lolo is an environmental puzzle game where you need to collect all the heart frames to unlock the treasure chest. The Lolo series stands out among the other box puzzlers, thanks to its variety of tools, enemies, and clever challenges. They really ought to reboot the series, maybe throw Kirby in there if they need the market reach. Adventures of Lolo 2 is much like the first game, with an extra graphical pass and better puzzles. There's less symmetry in the level design, and more thought-provoking layouts. If you want more stages, go play the Japanese version of Lolo 1, which is visually Lolo 2 in the West, but with all new levels. The Adventures of Lolo 3 more than doubles the amount of puzzles from the previous entry, and adds boss battles and an extra character. There's an overworld which makes it easy to switch puzzles if you're stuck, and an old man that plays with you in his treehouse. This is known as Lolo 2 in Japan, with different levels, making a grand total of 5 Lolo games for the NES and Japanese Famicom. Rad Gravity suffers from the age-old where the fuck is the foreground problem. Some enemies respawn too fast, and his dipstick is too short. There's a lot of weird places to go, and I would have been able to appreciate it if I knew what to look out for. It made me question whether a CRT filter would help, and no, it didn't. The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends is a total shit show. The screen scroll is broken, the controls are wonky, and the music loops are so short it's physically aggravating to play this with the sound on. You can't distinguish vital platforms from the background, and the attacks are pretty much useless. At least you can switch between characters. I hate being superficial about graphics, but The Adventures of Tom Sawyer is what I'd consider an ugly game. I could forgive it if it had good controls or fun mechanics. Tom's projectile has the wrong arc, and the dudes just jump over you when you run at them anyway. The rafting is a little bit better if you can make it there. Afterburner plays okay, if you don't plan on turning your aircraft or looking at the damn screen. I immediately became motion sick while seeing this, and it only got worse every passing moment. I checked the demo reel to make sure I wasn't doing something wrong, and nope, it even looks more like vomit. Air Fortress starts off as a modest side-scrolling space shooter, but then adds a second gameplay style that looks like a platformer, but it's actually a jetpack game. The sense of gravity is good, but the look ahead could have been better, making Air Fortress an acceptable space mission. Airwolf was a decent Air Force game where you navigate maps, take out enemy aircrafts, rescue hookers, and traffic drugs. The sky and landscape change from one ugly dull palette to another, just like in real life, but at least it controls fine. Just make sure to increase your speed with the start button, if you don't appear to be moving. I thought I knew motorsports until I tried Al Unser Jr.'s Turbo Racing for the NES. The 3-gearbox shift works well, so most tight corners will be taken at 2. The backgrounds are different and the sky changes. You can start your own team and develop your car for this season, and there's a battery save. Al Unser Jr. was ahead of its time. The licensed version of Disney's Aladdin is a port of the Game Boy port of a Genesis game, so it was technically a demake of a next-gen game upscaled and then pissed on. There's a bootleg version of the NES Aladdin that is far superior, more like the Super Nintendo edition. How this got through QA is beyond reproach. Alfred Chicken is a platformer that takes a tiny bit of learning. Your main attack is dive bombing, but you can avoid enemies by jumping and gliding. The goal is to peck balloons and activate switches. I had some trouble distinguishing hazards and passable objects, but it's still more than playable with a bit of patience. Alien 3 is one of those games you just want to see fixed. The soundtrack is awesome, you're given a variety of worthy firearms, but the poor look ahead and where the hell do I go isms ruin the experience. Slap a timer on there for some bad measure, along with sticky controls, and you're in for a traumatic experience. Alien Syndrome is a top-down run-and-gun shooter, where you round up communists to board an alien spacecraft. The monsters and gore are nicely animated, and you can look at the map or some Facebook posts. Any game with simultaneous 2-player deserves a try, and Alien Syndrome does couch co-op pretty well, and plays a bit better sped up. All-Pro Basketball has you competing as an amateur dance team in a glitched-out gymnasium. The screen cuts away when you cross half court, and flips sides, bringing the playability down to 0. There's a demo mode where you can watch 2 computers play each other, just to prove that someone actually tried programming this shit. You'll need to brush up on your alphabet if you want to make it an alpha mission. Remembering which letters are good and bad is essential for survival, especially the boss battles, and you can hit select to bring up your arsenal. I'm gonna be comparing a lot of shooters to how I feel about this and games like 1943, which is pretty much the same whatever. Over on the platformer side of whatever, we have Amagon. Slightly odd controller movements can be okay if the levels and enemy placements are designed with your weird jumps and dorky projectile in mind. You can get really buff if you pick up a box of steroids, and you'll need it to take out the big guys, unless you got a turbo button. American Gladiators is a minigame compilation with a radical design. Becoming familiar with each of the event's various controls will be a hurdle for many. I see where they were going with the wall climb, rubbing your thumb over the A-B buttons. And the field events are really weird. Let's just call American Gladiators a haptic challenge and move on. Anticipation is everything you want in a party game, minus the box art. And entering words into the NES is as graceful as it gets. Move around the board and answer each of the 4 categories. Some answers are hilarious, others require a bit of imagination, but it's the same for everyone, so if you can go into anticipation with other people for the first time, do it. Arch Rivals tells the story of a race war that started over a game of basketball. Their faces and animations look really stupid, but it's pretty satisfying to punch somebody when they're taking a shot. If they could have added knives and firearms, it would have been cooler. That and some better controls. Archon is kinda like battle chess, but the goal is to occupy 5 flashing tiles. The battle mechanics are a bit weird, but bear with them, they work. There's also magic spells and a light cycle that affects the units on the tiles. If they could reboot this one and port it to mobile or Switch, it would be really cool. Arctic Adventures Penguin and Seal is one of those rare Taiwanese turned Australian HES cartridges you'll never find in the wild. You move boxes to make way for the diamonds so that you can pull them into the igloo. This would be cool if they added in different enemies or boxes. The developer gave up way too early on this one. Arkanoid on the NES qualifies as one of the most definitive versions of the classic Breakout clone, as long as you have the VOS controller. The best way to enjoy this game is with your fingers on the dial, but can also be enjoyed with a mouse for research and educational purposes. It's challenging, but the useful power-ups keep every block within reach. Arkista's Ring is a maze action game, even though it might appear to be a top-down action RPG. You trot around and take out enemies with your projectile until a key appears, so you can open the door. The variety of environments compelled me to push forward, but your mileage may vary, and the lack of 2-player is a missed opportunity. Asterix was only released in PAL regions, so it probably contains a lot of witticisms that Americans couldn't understand. On the platforming edge, Asterix jump is stupid, and his attack is a wimpy arm flail, but the levels are still pretty fair, and there's enough secrets and diversions to keep things moving along. Astyanax is a big fat platformer, with large hitboxes and little room to dodge. This is offset by the forgiving health bar and iframes. It takes a certain kind of person to appreciate the blunt, slow-killing attacks, but if you go into Astyanax expecting to trade blows, you don't feel guilty about taking damage. Athena is a sloppy adventure that crosses the threshold between bad and broken. The hit detection doesn't make any sense. Jumping only works half the time, and I have no idea how I beat the first boss. You can duck on a mushroom and find stuff in the walls, but save yourself the agony and just play the arcade cabinet instead. Athletic World requires a mat that you stomp on in order to run, jump, and shuffle around. It feels a bit proprietary, but any game that employs a rarely used peripheral device probably would. Once you're familiar with the footwork, it becomes first nature, but a true gamer would break a sweat just from setting it up. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes feels like each level was designed by a different middle school student. You don't have a dash button until level 3, and your only method of attack is to jump. The sewers test your directional ability way too hard, but there are some good moments like the gravity changing stage and organ battle. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is an unfinished adventure. Just like this video will be unfinished unless you continue to support Game Test Play by upvoting, subscribing, commenting, and sharing this on whatever media platform tickles your nuts. But before we go, let me leave you with a couple more rarities. Aussie Rules Footy is some sort of mysterious sports game from the people referred to as Down Under. I couldn't read the instruction manual since it was printed in Australian. All I know is that once I was able to gain control of the ball, I was told to switch sides. I'll let you know more if I ever get it translated. Auto Upturn looks like a slide puzzle, but it's really an action game where you move around tiles to complete the picture on the pause menu, which fades away the more you stop and look at it. Areolas are shown on the final 2 levels, and it makes me wonder if the creator sought to destroy the innocence of children, or just wanted to see what they could slip by the censors.